Believe it or not, I actually made a script on Dragon's Rising Season 1 way back in January, and I was about to start recording before realizing that I had other things to deal with first, like school and classes and other stuff that I'm too lazy and impatient to talk about right now. So that script was collecting dust for months before I dug it back up again recently after watching Dragon's Rising Season 2 Part 1. So I had like 5 pages of script in the first part of Season 2 to work with, and a week and a half later, here we are. Don't expect this video to be structured or anything, I'm gonna be ranting a lot. Surprising absolutely no one, I am mad about Jay's lack of screen time. This random cloud monk is on screen more than one of the core 4 ninja, which does surprise me. Nonetheless, I think that in the seasons to come, Jay is going to be handled pretty well, since the idea of him losing his memory is an interesting narrative, and I will admit I am curious to see how the situation plays out. I did like how he already figured out that he had lightning powers and was just trying to keep it under wraps. I think that was well done. As for the new ninja, my personal favorite is Aaron, just because of how original his power is. Giving Spinjitzu to a thrown object is pretty cool. I thought his version of Spinjitzu was really interesting. My guess for him is that he's going to unlock golden power like Lloyd did all the way back in Season 2. That's like this big theory of mine. Sora was annoying at first with her, "I'm so unlucky, I'm such a black cloud." But I thought she was a creative character too for the most part. But her, this actual creature, the laziest thing I have ever seen. This is just a female version of Kai. You're telling me that someone in Ninjago sat down, actually had the idea to make this monstrosity, and everybody thought that it was so good that they actually added her into the show? She's just a worse version of Kai with different colored fire. Next. Don't get me wrong, there are a few characters that I haven't talked about yet that did actually impress me, but this is not one of them. Euphrasia is average at best. She's got one of the best elemental powers in the show, but she uses it so badly. When Moro used it, he was really good with it. You can see that he's experienced, he's strong, he messed with the ninja for a while. And then Euphrasia gets taken down by a bunch of random Joe Schmoes. You're telling me that this is the inheritor of Moro's power? This thing? But then again, she did manage to stabilize an entire section of the Cloud Kingdom, with a bit of help from Zane and Cole, so I guess that makes up for it. Like I said, not good, not bad. She isn't going to summon the wrath of the sun on her enemies or anything, it's Euphrasia. One of the most underrated characters in the entire show so far is the Jin. You know, that guy. You're actually stupid if you think I'm going to take the time and the effort to pronounce that. This guy can summon glowing knives, grant any wish, and has one of the most compelling character arcs of the show thus far, which is impressive for someone with 15 minutes of screen time. I don't know what else to say, he's just overall a really good character who doesn't get as much appreciation as he should. Everybody knows Empress Beatrix, dictator of Imperium, tried to destroy everything, blah blah blah. She's a decent villain, I guess. But the person everybody forgets about is her sister, and I'm not saying that, that sounds so dumb. Also, seeing the names side by side just made me realize how bad that looks. Seriously? You couldn't think of anything else, like any other better name? Really? Some of the names that you can find in the back alleys of this show are actually insane. There's an anaconda devotee called Kapow, and a skeleton named Knuckle. Anyway, she only shows her elemental power for a bit, but what she does is she launches herself into the air using some kind of energy, and crashes back down, sending a shockwave around her. You know how Black Panther has that energy burst? It's kind of like that. The only part about this power that I don't like is how limited its screen time is. The ability that can create shockwaves and let the user fly is only shown for one flashback, and yet Bob the Builder over here with his super glue powers is one of the main characters. Zeatrix's power has no background, no exposition, or anything like that, so it's hard to make a good guess as to what her power is exactly, but another YouTuber that I'll list here made a solid thesis that I actually agree with. Basically, in his video, he talks about the leaked sets that are going to be released later this summer. He highlights one set, in particular the Source Dragon of Motion. He talks about how Ninjago could definitely classify her power as motion, saying that she moves to absorb motion and just lets it all out in a burst. I agreed with this theory before watching Season 2 Part 1, and after watching it, I'm just as convinced. During the series, Lloyd gets these visions. It's like a whole thing. And he gets a vision of the Source Dragon symbols talking about him, and we can see the different Source Dragon names. I'll display the symbols on screen right now so you can see. There are only 4 that we know of right now. Strength, life, energy, and motion. If you look closely, you'll see that energy is an element for a Source Dragon, and Lloyd's element is called energy. Now I know that this might be a little far-fetched, but I think that the Source Dragon elements are also elements for regular elemental masters. Life could probably be referring to the first Spinjitzu master, because that's the only character that I can think of that would have a power like that. Strength, I'm not sure. Maybe it's Aaron. Maybe it's some character that we haven't met yet. I don't know. Maybe we'll get introduced to an elemental master of strength in the future. I also think that if there are elemental masters of strength and motion, then they will be some of the strongest characters that we've seen. Because the first Spinjitzu Master and Lloyd are pretty strong, so I mean, following that logic, they should be strong too. Even though I just dissed him, I actually really liked Geo. I thought that his character design was cool, and a Month's Elemental Master was a good idea. The problem is, Geo just wasn't in the right spot to use his powers. Geo's power is that he can fuse things together, and they can't come apart unless he wants them to. There's no limit that we've found to Geo's power yet, which means that fighting him could be an easy fight or a tough one, depending on where the fight is taking place. Let's just say that you were to fight Geo in a hallway. Like, any hallway. If Geo were to touch anything, it's done. It's over. Because if he touches the floor, then he can fuse the floor to your shoes that you're probably wearing. And by fusing the floor to your shoes, he can fuse your shoes to your socks, which means that you're basically stuck in place. So by simply touching the floor, he's basically gorilla glued your feet to the floor. But can't you just take your socks off and fight barefoot? I'm sorry, do you think he's gonna politely sit there and let you wiggle out of your shoes? No, he's just gonna charge you as soon as you're stuck. If you thought being weaker than a blind man with a guitar was demoralizing, have I got news for you. The reason Geo seemed so weak in the Land of Lost Things is because he was fighting in the Land of Lost Things. If he was fighting anywhere else with a floor that was man-made, he would have been a menace. The Master Wu Ghost is definitely the weirdest part of Season 1. It's like a golden ghost that takes the form of Master Wu and watches over the ninja. It does do some things, like lead Kai to the portal gate, but other than that, it doesn't really do anything else, at least for Season 1. I know I said that Empress Beatrix was an underwhelming main villain, but really she's kind of supposed to be like that since she wasn't actually the main antagonist, she was just leading up to Lord Ross. I'll admit I was not expecting Ross to become such a big deal. I was just expecting him to remain a side character. Nonetheless though, he does do a good job of being a villain. His motives are a little cloudy, but who cares about motives when haha hammer go bam. Jordana's gag is one of the few ongoing jokes in Ninjago that are actually funny. Other than that, though, she's pretty unremarkable. Sure, she's Sora's quote-unquote rival, but not really. Nothing really interesting happens to her during Season 1. And so we come to the miscellaneous category. These are the ideas and characters that just don't deserve a full paragraph, in my opinion. That and I'm too lazy to make a paragraph for them, since if I did, this video would be like an hour long. These characters come with absolutely no fanfare, no parade, or anything like that. If this section seems a little rushed, that's because it is. Dr. LaRoe. If you didn't remember her name, that's okay because I had to look it up for this video. The main scientist for Empress Beatrix, that's about it. Sora's parents. The only thing that I thought interesting about them was that at the end, Sora rejected them and learned that she found her own family who actually cared about her in the ninja. Rapton, comic relief. I can tell that his turn to the good side was absolutely a last-minute decision, and if it was planned, then my god, did you screw it up. Percival. Heatwave. Wildfire being raised by dragons was a creative idea, which I think was executed well, and Heatwave makes a great parent. Now that Season 1 is out of the way, I can start with my opinions on Season 2. Firstly, the wolf theme is so good. Like, it looks so good. If you think that it doesn't look good, you're lying to yourself. Grow up, honestly. The Shadow Dojo, Wolf Mask Warriors, Gong of Shattering, I like all of that. The design and everything looks so good, and the animation looks crazy. The Forbidden 5 lore dump looks really cool, and I am going to be making a theory on that. Lord Ross is an amazing villain as per usual, and Jordana, well, I'll get back to her in a bit. Before that, Cinder. Cinder is such a good character, his personality matches his element, and he's definitely an upgrade from Ash. His fight against Kai was a really good callback to the fight between Ash and Kai too. And of course, Shatterspin looks amazing. I mentioned this before with the wolves, but the animation just looks so good. The colors blend together so well to form this like cyclone of darkness, which I really enjoy. I also really like the gag where Cinder and Jordana compete to be Ross's second in command. 100% one of the top 3 new characters in Dragon's Rising, it's Cinder. Gandalaria was a refreshing surprise since sorcery isn't something that we see often in Ninjago. She's definitely a change of pace, although Fungus will always be the best Ninjago magician in my mind. Also, the Master Wu Ghost hangs around Gandalaria, so there's some more insight in that category. One thing that I was just like taken aback by was the Bonzel reveal. This made no sense to me. If you like this reveal, you do you, but this was absolutely horribly done to me. Why did they need to do this? There was no point to this at all. Like, seriously though, what is with all of these secret reveals just, like, sucking? Can we go back to the golden age of Ninjago reveals? Remember Harumi and Skylar? What happened to reveals like that? Now every reveal just feels forced. That's probably the best word to describe characters like Bonzel. They're just forced into a story that they don't belong in, and that's what makes me mad. Rontu and Egot were very well done. Obviously, Egot is supposed to be the main focus, since he's the only one who got a set, and this is for a good reason. Egot definitely outshines Rontu in every category. By no means am I saying that Rontu is a bad character character, I'm just saying that Eagle is better. His pessimistic view on things is supported by one of the few good reveals in Dragon's Rising, his wasting sickness. I like the conversation Wildfire has with him, because it opens his eyes and shows him that he's not dead yet, and that maybe there's hope. Eagle, like Cinder, is one of my favorite characters in this show. I also enjoyed the Rising Dragon technique. The animators at Ninjago are cooking, and everything looks so nice. I said I would come back to Jordana, and here we are. She learns this, dark magic thing, which she uses to summon one of the Forbidden Five, Noct, which I'll get back to. Again, magic plays a major part for some reason. At the very end of part 1, we see her rocking back and forth, and she has lost it. I'll make a theory video on that soon, but not just yet. Noct, like I said, is one of the Forbidden Five, and that's all that we know about him. He doesn't have a chance to do anything before Ross slaps a control device on him and puts him in his place. But as one of the Forbidden Five, he should be pretty strong, right? And that basically wraps up my thoughts on Dragon's Rising so far. I am really enjoying this show, and I do want to see what comes next. The Tournament of Sources looks like it's going to be great, and I am really excited for it. Let me know your theories and ideas in the comments, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.